Hey everybody, this is D Hunter, bringing another action figure review. Today, we're going to be looking at the McFarlane DC Multiverse Megafig Swamp Thing. A Megafig is a giant, deluxe, oversized figure. These usually run about $40. This guy looks fantastic. The packaging is huge. The figure is heavy. He's so big, they even have to have him crouch to fit in this giant package. I got my figure from Amazon.com. It's supposed to arrive about a week ago, delayed, but he's finally here. There is also a Platinum Chase variant, which is an unpainted gray version, and there's also a GameStop exclusive version with antlers on his head. Hopefully I'll have the others soon. So let's check out the package. As you can see, ages 12 plus, DC Multiverse Swamp Thing. One side, Swamp Thing from DC's Rebirth. Other side, Swamp Thing. At the bottom, got a bunch of credits, and there is a barcode, in case that helps anybody. Here he is in the package. Looks like he has one alternate hand, sort of a plant vine type accessory. He's got a display stand and a collector's card in the background. On the back, here's Swamp Thing posed up in the jungle. And here, a bunch of other recently released McFarlane DC Multiverse figures you should check out. So with no further ado, let's open him up. Alright, now that we got this figure out of the package, here he is with all his accessories laid out. He comes with a display stand, collector's card, and one alternate hand. Before we check out the accessories, let's talk about and check out the actual figure. This is Alec Holland, turned into Swamp Thing by lab accident, and this figure is amazing. So let's take a look. The detailing is just fantastic. He's got that signature sort of Swamp Thing mustache. I'm glad that's the look they went with. Red eyes. Just the texturing, the plants all over him. The paint job is nice, but I've seen some really superb paint jobs that have enhanced this guy. The sculpt is just so good. All these different vines, different texturing underneath. Plants all over. They're made of a soft material, so it's not going to affect the articulation. Single jointed elbows. Mine does have some sort of ugly stuff here, where I don't know that it's not painted. Not that bad, but man, it's very noticeable. Rubber diaper here. Looks like he's got double ball joints. Double jointed knees. I mean, just look at the intricacy of the sculpt. It is fantastic. In addition to that, this guy is just huge. On the back, more and more plant pieces. You can see he even has some roses or flowers here. Not painted though. Could really make him pop. A few little extra details on this guy. But I'll tell you, McFarlane has outdone themselves. This is what I want. A regular looking Swamp Thing to add to my DC superheroes. Fantastic. Not some crazy dark science metal Swamp Thing. A regular all-purpose version. Thank you, McFarlane. And this guy is giant. And just a closer look at his head or face sculpt. Like I said before, I am so happy they gave him that signature mustache look. That is my version of Swamp Thing. That's how he was in the movies and in the comics. The texture is great. The eyes look good. Very pleased. And then, here's the figure broken down as far as he can go, with all of his removable parts detached. It looks like just his right hand comes off, so that's where we're going to use his alternate limb. I was hoping that both hands would come off, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Now let's take a look at his accessories, and let's talk the boring stuff. He's got this display stand, typical McFarlane stand, black perfect circle, says DC at the bottom. It's got one peg for the peg holes on his feet. Very thin, very basic. Here's his collector's card. Just Swamp Thing in the jungle. Swamp Thing from DC's Rebirth. On the back, there is a description. If you want to read that, go ahead and pause now. And then we have his alternate right hand. Once again, the detailing is fine. God, I hate to say it, looks like a giant negative weed. Very nicely done though. Here's Swamp Thing with his regular hands. And here he is with his alternate hand, sort of a plant-like weapon. Here's Swamp Thing running through the swamp, chasing out an intruder. I went ahead and dipped this guy's arm into some boiling water and removed his left hand. His left hand does not budge off nearly as easily as his right hand. I didn't want to mess anything up. The alternate hand does fit into his left arm, which is very nice. It's kind of an unnatural sort of curve there, so I think it is intended only for his right arm, but it looks pretty good on his left. And that means when I get the antler version, I can give him two different sort of plant vine weapon arms at the same time. Now that we've taken a pretty good look at both the figure and his accessories, now let's check out his height. And this guy's an absolute giant. You probably can't really tell, there's no point of reference right now. We will do a bunch of comparisons shortly. From bottom to the top of his head, he's standing at about 11.3 inches tall, which can translate to almost 29 centimeters. Now let's talk about his height for just a second. You can see he appears to be almost twice as big as McFarlane DC Multiverse figure. That's a little bit of exaggeration. He's sitting at a little over 11 inches, and these guys are about 7 inches. It is a crazy big difference. He is their tallest figure by far, and I love it. I've seen a couple of people out there think he's a little bit too big, and I can understand that, but I really like having a large, oversized deluxe Swamp Thing, make him unique, and separate him from the rest of the figures. Now, Swamp Thing doesn't exactly have a set size in the comics. He can be a crazy giant, way bigger than this, and he can be about the same size as a man. I really like what McFarlane did here, though. Now let's check out his articulation. Starting with his head here, of course, it can rotate from side to side. He can look up about that far, down about that far, pretty nice. Can tilt his head from one side to the other, give him a good amount of personality. Shoulder on a ball joint goes out a little bit less than 90 degrees. Up, down, around, all that good stuff. He does have a butterfly joint between his shoulder and chest area, just increasing the range of motion. Now, he has a bicep cut here, but mine seems to be totally fused. I tried to free it up. The other side works just fine. Single jointed elbow goes in about 90 degrees. It does have rotation, so that makes up for this part not working. His wrist can rotate, and it's going to be hinged as well. He's got a ball joint in his torso, can rotate around, go forward and back. It's hidden pretty nicely with this overlay. Another ball joint in his waist, rotate around, go forward and back. Give him pretty good range of motion here. You get more out of the waist than the torso. Completely does the splits. Not a ball joint, but a similar type idea. Rotation, it's really not too bad. Legs go forward about that far. Back, not too much. Double jointed knees below that. Then his ankle here, he can go forward and back, can rotate, can tilt, and their toe articulation. I even dipped Swamp Thing into some boiling water, and it wasn't enough to free up the bicep. Here's Alec Holland, working in his lab. Until his lab explodes under mysterious circumstances. Alec Holland is covered in chemicals and fire. He jumps into the swamp to save his life, transforming him into Swamp Thing. And I always remember Swamp Thing taking on some large creatures or monsters. Here's Swamp Thing fighting NECA's Ultimate Kessler Wolf. And here, taking on a McFarlane Witcher Ice Giant. And then, being overrun by a large McFarlane Witcher Kikamora. Here's Swamp Thing choking a couple of McFarlane Stranger Things Demogorgons. And then chilling with a couple of his tree ant buddies. Which one do you guys think will be the boss of the swamp? We got this giant tree ant, or Swamp Thing. Here's a woman handing a flower to Swamp Thing. This figure works for a good fill-in for his wife or girlfriend, Abigail Arcane. And just FYI, this figure is a Diamond Select iZombie Live More. Now let's check him out, next to some other action figures, starting off with some other McFarlane DC Multiverse figures. Here's Swamp Thing, next to the Zack Snyder's Justice League mega figures McFarlane made, both Darkseid and Steppenwolf. Swamp Thing is considerably larger than them. And here's Swamp Thing next to the mega figure version of the Suicide Squad King Shark. And I thought King Shark was big. Look at Swamp Thing. Here's Swamp Thing next to all the different McFarlane Build-A-Figures. We've got the Joker Batman Robot, Darkfather, Bane, Swamp Thing, King Shark, and Merciless. Swamp Thing is by far the tallest figure McFarlane has made in their DC line. Here's Swamp Thing next to a bunch of other DC Rebirth superheroes. We just need a few more characters like this. regular, modern, iconic versions of the characters, whereas Wonder Woman, Aquaman, Cyborg, Shazam, there are so many more we need. Come on, McFarlane, keep cranking them out. Now let's check him out. Next to some other recently released McFarlane DC Multiverse figures. Here he is, with the 3 Jokers figures that I have. Really hoping to find the other 4. Then, next to Lobo and Superboy Prime. And here, with both of the Lex Luthor figures. And now, next to the Hazmat Suit Batman and the Birds of Prey Harley Quinn. Now let's check him out, next to some other Swamp Thing figures. The only other 6 or 7 inch scale Swamp Thing that I have is a DC Direct, DC Comics Essential Swamp Thing. It's another oversized Swamp Thing figure. I like the way he looked. His articulation is decent. He's a little bit bigger and well sculpted. He's always scratched my Swamp Thing itch until now. This McFarlane one is way superior. Then, next to a bunch of older Kenner Swamp Thing figures. These are a lot smaller, based off the old Swamp Thing films. I used to use these for Poison Ivy creations, back when there weren't as many choices. Here's Swamp Thing with all my different Poison Ivy figures. Being a huge Batman fan and collector, I always think it's cool to have Poison Ivy interact with Swamp Thing. Maybe she can control him, turn him dark for a bit. Now let's check him out, next to some other plant-type action figures. Most of these are Poison Ivy creations in my action figure world. Here he is, next to a giant Toy Biz Treant. This guy's way bigger than Swamp Thing. Then, next to a couple of smaller sized Toy Biz Lord of the Rings Treants. These guys are probably about 8 inches tall. Oversized, smaller than Swamp Thing, but very similar type action figures, plant-based. And here, next to a couple of McFarlane Stranger Things Demogorgons. Now, Demogorgon is not exactly a plant-type creature, but his face opens up like the petals of a flower, so I always thought they made for really good Poison Ivy creations. And here, next to a couple of Bandai Stranger Things Demogorgons. Here's Swamp Thing, next to a Hasbro Marvel Legends Groot. I could see these guys having a lot of fun together. It looks like they could be best buddies. And here, with a couple of He-Man Revelations Mossman figures. I use these guys as Poison Ivy creations, and sometimes I might use one as the Floronic Man, another DC plant villain. Then, next to a couple of older Resident Evil plant monsters. These are great for Poison Ivy. Here's Swamp Thing, next to a Godzilla villain called Biolante. Looks like a plant monster hybrid. And here, with a couple of Ninja Turtle Snakeweed figures. And here, with some little plant-type creatures I found at Amazon. Now let's check them out, next to some other Mega figures. McFarlane has made these Mega figures in more than just their DC line. These Mega figures are typically about $40, but there's some giant, greatly detailed figures. Here he is, next to a couple of Witcher Mega figures. Then, next to the Princess Bride Mega figure, Fezzik. Now let's check him out, next to some action figures from different various companies, to see how he fits in, both scale and style-wise, in case you want to know which lines you can mix him with. Since he's a McFarlane figure, they're typically 7-inch scale. I'm going to start off my comparisons with some of the larger action figure lines I collect, and work my way smaller. Here he is, with some of his McFarlane Toys brothers. In front of you are 5 different action figures, all McFarlane toys, all 7-inch scale. Then, with some more McFarlane toys, these are from different various video game properties. And now, next to some Jack-specific wrestling figures. And here he is, next to some DST or Diamond Select toys. Then, next to some DC Direct and DC Collectibles figures. And here he is, next to some NECA figures. Then, next to some Mattel wrestling figures. And now, next to some Jazzwares AEW wrestling figures. And here he is, next to some Mezco 112 collective figures. Then, next to some Mattel DC Universe Classics and Multiverse figures. And here, next to some Mayfix figures. Then, next to some Hasbro Marvel Legends. And here he is, next to some SH Figure Arts action figures. And finally, next to some Jazzwares Fortnite figures. So overall, this is an awesome figure. He is absolutely fantastic. I love how big he is. He is the tallest McFarlane DC figure yet. His sculpt job is exquisite. The detail is just amazing and endless. His paint job is good. Could be a little better. If his paint job was better, I'd have gladly paid $50 for this guy. I've seen some really cool repaints online. His articulation is good. The bicep cup being stuck is not a big deal because he has elbow rotation. I like the accessory, the alternate hand. Can't wait to get a second one. If I were to rate this figure, I think I'm going to give him a 9 out of 10. I am just really enjoying this guy. One of the best McFarlane DC figures of the year, and that is a bold statement because they've released some really nice stuff. So this is D Hunter. Thank you guys for watching this video. If you liked the video, press like below. If you have anything you want to say about the video, add to the comment section. If you want to see additional action figure reviews from me, press subscribe. I do appreciate when you do that. Once again, this is D Hunter. Thank you guys for watching this video, and I will talk to you guys real soon.